Welcome to The Pulse, where we delve deep into the issues and ideas that are shaping the future of education. I'm your host, Rick Surrency, Superintendent of the Putnam County School District, and each week we'll be talking to teachers, administrators, and other experts in the field about the latest trends, best practices, and most pressing concerns in education. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, or just someone who cares about education, this podcast is for you. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the pulse. Hi, this is Rick Surrency. I'm the superintendent of the Putnam County School District, and welcome to our podcast. And I am really excited about our guest today. We've got Sam and Dean here to talk about the Bartram Trail. And of course, if you've ever set foot in Palatka or Putnam County, you've heard about the Bartram Trail because that has become really a significant annual event. And, you know, me being an old history teacher, I love hearing about the journeys of Bartram and where all he's gone and all that. But as we'll talk about later, we will be talking about more about, you know, how our schools interact with the Bartram Frolic and so forth. But I think for the audience now, I think it'd be really worthwhile just to talk about the background and, you know, why is Bartram, you know, so important to Palatka and Putnam County. So Sam and Dean, welcome, and both of y'all just give a brief introduction of yourself, and then we'll get into our discussion.
All right. Well, my name is Sam Carr. I graduated from Palatka South High School, went over to came down in 1968, I believe it was, that we came down, and also I'm from here. And right now I'm retired, and I'm also the president of the Bartram Trail Society of Florida, and have enjoyed the trip. Very
good.
Yep.
Good to have you, Sam. And Dean?
Yeah, Dean Campbell, and I grew up in Palatka, and like Sam went to school here at Mosley campus here, and then over at the junior high. Didn't graduate from Palatka High, was up at a private school up in Orange Park, but came back to work here. And so my entire career was spent at the Water Management District, spent 33 years there at the Water Management District working on the restoration of the St. Johns River. District was just a great place to work, and we were doing a really good bit of science out there, and it was just a really fun time. And that's where I was really first introduced to William Bartram. Was when we were trying to establish some restoration goals for the St. Johns River. My dad, who was a surgeon here in Palatka, had given me a copy of Bartram's Travels. And when I was mentioned to him we were looking for these restoration goals, he said, well, you know, you need to look at Bartram's Travels because he wrote all about what the St. Johns River looked like back before European development really set in. And sure enough, I started reading that, and it did have some fascinating scientific descriptions about the flora, the fauna, the condition of the St. Johns River. And furthermore, his father, John Bartram, had drafted a journal which talked about a survey that they conducted on the St. Johns River back in 1776 and 1765 and 66. And they came down and spent a lot of time on the St. Johns River. And having worked on the St. Johns River and played on it, a lot of the places that I found in that journal and in Bartram's Travels were places that Sam and I had played as kids, you know, and with David Buckles looking around in the St. Johns River for arrowheads.
The
same places that we had visited with kids. These were all familiar to me, and I thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool to go back and try to find a lot of these places on the St. Johns River? And then Sam and I started talking about it, and
about that time.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that y'all started?
That was in 2012 or so. Yeah, that we were. But of course, Dean had organized a paddle up the St. Johns River, the whole length of the St. Johns River, and invited me and Donnie Adams to go along with him. And so Dean started spouting all this good stuff out about Bartram was here, Bartram was there. And I got kind of interested in it, and at the time I was a member of the Putnam County Waterways Committee, headed up by Nancy Harris. And so in one of those, and Dean and I had been talking about retracing the steps of Bartram in Putnam County, and the city of Palatka was redeveloping its waterfront, and they asked the Waterways Committee, did anything famous happen here? I said, well,
Glad you asked.
according to my buddy Dean, the guy who wrote America's first literary masterpiece was here. And so that got the interest started. And so Nancy said, you're the chairman of the committee, and therefore go for and find out what we're here for. And so that's exactly what we did. We started getting out on the river and paddling up and down and trying to find all these locations and all. And so how many did we find, Dean?
32. We've got
Wow.
32 different locations that you can pinpoint in reading the travels and the journal. And if you read
Do you pinpoint him by his description?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. In fact, one of the deliverables he had a contract with the territorial governor of Florida at the time to survey, to conduct the survey, and also to create a map. But that map had to have been created because he turned it in to the governor, but it's been lost. So it would have been great if we'd had that map that he created, but he didn't. But his descriptions are so vivid. And in a lot of cases, they are of places that currently exist in a state very similar to what they were in 1765 when they toured it. A spring, for instance, a Florida spring. You can read about where he was in the river, and he'll say, we encountered a spring, and he'll describe how far it was from the river and the depth of the spring and how much water and that kind of thing. And from that, you could pretty closely identify. A lot of them you can nail down.
That's amazing that St. Johns River has maintained its structure and all of its features for that long.
Yes, and I'll tell you, Rick, one of the things that we're really fortunate in Putnam County is that a lot of the ownership of the land adjacent to the St. Johns River is in the public ownership. It's a national forest, or it's a preserve of some kind.
Water management, right.
Yeah, Water Management District owns it, and so consequently, it continues to exist in a state of nature, very similar to what the Bartrams encountered.
Where it's not being developed. It's
exactly
its natural
correct.
state.
And you can't say that about many stretches of the St. Johns River. You go up to Jacksonville, you can't go 100 feet without having to go under a dock if you're paddling along the shoreline. So we're just very fortunate in this area, especially in terms of the Bartram Trail, which is attracting people who are interested in nature. It gives them an experience by using Bartram as the narrator to pull up to a particular location, a Bartram site, and to read what he wrote about that site, and then to actually look at it and say, oh, yeah, okay, I recognize this. This is very...
You're looking at exactly what Bartram is looking at.
You're looking at what, you say, I'm in the footprints of William Bartram.
That is amazing.
So that was the real fun part, was actually getting out on the river and finding all these locations. And it was there's some wonderful stories that we could share with you about that. But as we were doing this, and as this information started getting back to the county and all we decided we needed to do something. So we had some people who were experts on that stuff. Dean, obviously, but Ken and Janice Mahaffey had been involved with Bartram even before this committee started, and we also knew of a scholar over at University of Florida by the name of. Here I go.
Porter.
Catherine Porter, yeah. And she had written a book and all, and the book was entitled A Teacher's Guide to William Bartram in Florida. So we invited her into one of our meetings, and she throws the book on the table for all of us, and we're looking and going, really? Really? It really happened here? And it was just eyes opening and all this, that, and the other. And her comment to us was, you own it. I mean, Putnam County owns this legacy, this history, and this heritage, and everything. And so what are you going to do with it? And so that's really what got us started. And so we, through the city and the county, they applied to the Humanities Council, got a Humanities Council grant for $30,000. And the city's contribution was managing the grant and providing us with infrastructure, if you will, to develop the trail. And then the county's part was to develop a website and to provide us with the signage and all of that. And from that point till 2013, And the Bartram Trail opened in basically March of 2014. It was unbelievable.
So since that time, and of course you alluded to that a little bit, but what has been done, and I know we'll get into the school part on another time, but what has been done with this project? We're talking 2013 to 2025.
Right. So at once we got the grant, then the next thing we had to do was identify all the locations, which we did, and then we had to have a map, because if you're going to have a trail, you got to have a map. And so we started putting pins on maps and all this, and we had a company by the name of Sailforth that came along beside us. They were the ones who developed the Black Bear Scenic Highway, and so we hooked up with them, and they took on the project as well and helped us create the map. Once we had the map done, we're a trail, and so we there we are. And so I happened to be on the Florida Greenways and Trails Council at the time, and so I was telling them what we'd done, and then all of a sudden the National Park Service got wind of it, and they said, hey, that ought to be a national recreation trail. And I said, well, as long as I don't have to do anything, that's fine with me. So they came to town and processed the application and all this, that, and the other, and the county signed off on it. And in 2016, June of 2016, we became a national recreation trail, the only national recreation trail in North Florida.
Now, when you say a trail, what does that mean to the average person?
Yeah. Well, in our case, and again, Putnam County is a real advantage because the Bartram spent most of their time in Putnam County on the St. Johns River. So the trail in Putnam County is primarily it's a water trail, and that so from Sam's and my perspective, that'd be in a kayak or in some kind of a paddle craft. But you could do it in any kind of watercraft you wanted to. But you can also connect those dots by road. In a lot of places, you can access them by hiking into a particular place. And so this is one of the reasons that the National Recreation Trail was so interested in our project. Because as Sam gave a very brief, your question was, what made it a trail? What did you bring to the table? There was a lot more than just a map. And the reason, when Sam and I started talking about this, we thought, there aren't, what we'd like to do is we'd like to make this trail as accessible to the general public as we can. Let's make it a self-guiding trail that you don't have to have somebody to take you around, but put the resources out there that will enable a visitor to come and actually do the trail without any paid assistance. And so for that, we developed a website. The website has all the Bartram writings right there on it, so you can visit that website. And by working through the menu on the website, you can go to right now, it's only Putnam County. In the future, they will have every county along the Bartram Trail. But you can go to Putnam County and you click on Putnam County. It'll take you to a map of Putnam County. It'll show you where those sites are. Then you can click on each one of those sites, and it'll take you to another place on the website that has everything that the Bartrams wrote about that particular location. So you don't have to have your book with you. As long as you have a cell phone, you can go right on the website and read what the Bartrams wrote about it right there on your cell phone while you're on site. And then we posted that website up, made it available. Then we also went out and we put large markers at every one of these sites.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. If I'm out on my boat,
Yep.
I have a boat, by the way, and I'll get the map. There are some visible markers,
Yes, there are.
like sticking out of the water.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They're on trees. They're on stakes. They're wherever we felt like they were most visible. They're a great big sign. You can see them from a mile away.
Okay.
And so that was by design. So that was why the National Recreation folks, when they looked at what we had, and they said, okay, all the resources are there. In other words, we, the National Park Service, we don't have to do anything.
I mean, y'all did the hard work.
The work was done.
Laying it out there.
Yeah, and so so that's all there, and that's what made it so attractive. So following the trail, you can, they're on our brochure or on the website. Again, by clicking down into Putnam County, you can click on, there's a section there that says Maps. You can click on those maps, and it'll show you hiking trails, biking trails, paddling trails, driving trails. And the maps are there. You can download them, or you can just use them on your cell phone.
Are they not, this is a dumb question, but if I went to my GPS, would they show up on the GPS?
They would only if you put the points in. However,
Okay.
we do provide on those maps the GPS coordinates
Yeah.
are on there, so
That'd
you
be good.
could make your own waypoints ahead of time and enter those into your GPS.
Then it would show up on them. That's good.
We also have placed a QR code on each one of the markers, and so as you get to a marker, zap, and it takes you right to the website.
So the QR code is right on the marker?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You could literally
It is pretty cool.
not even have to have well, I guess you need a map to know where it is.
Well,
but once
you
you
can-
get there, you can read about
Yeah,
it.
and once even if you happen upon it by accident,
Yeah.
and you say, "What's this?" That's a nice sign. You know, it's a Bartram Trail site number such and such. When there's a QR code, you just point your camera at it, takes you right to that page on the website, and there's commentary to interpret what it is you're looking at, what the Bartrams were doing there. Then you can read what Billy Bartram wrote about it. There's photographs of the site that you can. So if you want to do some research ahead of time, you can kind of see what you're looking for.
Well, it's amazing, too, that at that time, we're talking 1600s? 1700s, I mean?
Mid-1700s,
1774, right?
So that time, I'm sure we had a lot of Seminole Indians, or, probably didn't have much civilization as we know it. And when Bartram was going into these areas, he probably didn't know who or what he was going to see.
Well, yeah, there's more to the story.
Yeah.
So when William Bartram came down here, he was considered to be a rock star because he and his father had been to the Indian treaties that were done in the 1760s. So when he came back in 74, they knew exactly who he was. Not only that, the Spanish had been here for 200 years. So William Bartram didn't build any trails. He followed the Indian trails or the Spanish trails all over the place. So there wasn't a lot of civilization when he was here in 74, and there was more civilization in 76. But remember, St. Augustine had been there for 200 years.
Right.
So there was civilization here and so forth. And so he was sent down here by the Royal Society of London, Billy Bartram was, because they wanted to know about the plants, animals, and flora and fauna in this area. The reason his father came down was because he was the royal botanist for King George, and King George wanted to know, what do I own? So that's why he sent them down. So it's different things. But as far as blazing trails, he didn't blaze trails. But the reason John Bartram came down, and he brought Billy with him, and when Billy came down, there were two different reasons.
So how was he received by the locals?
Well, again, John is traveling on behalf of the government. Billy's traveling because he's Billy. So when he got here, we have a character that's in our living history thing called Job Wiggins. And so the Spalding's Lower Store was located at Stokes Landing here.
Right.
And that was the center, are you ready for this? It was the center of European trade with the American Indians
No kidding. Wow.
at Stokes Landing here in Pulaski.
That is amazing.
It is amazing. And so that was a very safe place for Billy Bartram to hang out. And so there was also stores up in the St. Mary's area, and there's Fort Frederica and all that. So he was very sheltered. But the unique thing about William Bartram is when he got here, he was a lover, not a fighter. There's no doubt about it. They liked him so much. He wasn't after their women. He wasn't after their horses. He wasn't after their land. He didn't want anything from them. He just wanted to learn from them, and he appreciated their way of life. And so they adopted him and gave him a very special name, and that name was Puck Puggy. And that's why the Puck Puggy Park is down on the riverfront in Palatka right
Really?
now. Yes. Puck Puggy means flower hunter. And so white men didn't get Indian names, but Billy Bartram did.
So he was very special.
They loved him,
Yeah.
and he loved them too. And he is, and his history will tell it, he became one of the major resources for when the United States formed, 9 years later. he was one of the major resources to know, who are these people? Who are the Indians in Southeast? And so Thomas Jefferson used William Bartram to figure that out. What he said was, they don't need your taxes, they don't need your laws, they don't need your anything else. He says, just leave them alone. Yeah. That was his comment.
It's amazing that, our history, we always talk about the way that the white men and the Native Americans interacted.
Right.
It was not always in a peaceful manner.
No,
and that's very interesting. But of course, years later, I guess many of the Seminoles in this area were moved on their own, and that's a whole nother discussion.
Right. The history is fascinating. It really is fascinating.
And it's really amazing as we get on in the history of this area, which is a whole nother topic. Just talking about the history of the Civil War,
exactly,
and the turn of the century, and going back to the 1920s. This area was a destination.
It was.
So knowing about the early history really does provide some context to how important Palatka and Putnam County is. So I want to thank both of you for being here, and it really does kind of set the tone for our next episode.
Right.
And we're going to be talking about some of the activities since 2013, 14, 16, where we really have interacted with the school system.
Exactly.
And our kids, and we'll talk more about that, but our kids have learned more about Bartram than probably their parents have ever heard.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, and they love it.
Yeah.
It's really fun. We have a great time.
So just to whet everybody's appetite, what are some things that we will be talking about? Just a couple little items that you think that kids might want to tune in and listen to.
Okay, so during the frolic, we have each day we have about 700 or 800 of your kids show up at the riverfront, and there are 7 learning stations. And the most popular learning stations we have is the Long Warrior and all of the Indian, and he teaches them how to sing in Seminole. And then you got Trader Job Wiggins, and he teaches them how to make fire without a match. And then you got Billy Bartram, who teaches them all about the nature and everything like that. So that's what they see when they come to the riverfront.
That's pretty cool. And living history.
It is.
Instead of reading a book, to literally see it and talk to it is amazing. So I wish I'd had that when I was teaching history.
No kidding.
Yeah. Don't we all?
A long time ago. But I want Dean and Sam, I want to thank both of you for being here. Y'all are great friends.
Our pleasure.
I've known your family, and by the way, your dad was a member of the House of Representatives in Florida.
Correct.
So, that's a whole nother story too. But I know your family very well, and I just appreciate both of you, and y'all mean so much to this community. So we look forward to seeing your next podcast, and thank you for tuning in today.